There are people in this particular society who wants to see us exactly where we are. And we cannot let that point elude us. These are the facts. How do we know? 1967, Kerner Commission report on urban disorder. When black people said, yo, we're tired of this system. You know what I mean? This system is oppressing us. So we rebelled against the system. We burned things. We said, yo, we had enough. He did his little report on what caused these riots. He said, what caused these riots? He said it was young children who started these riots, and what was motivating them was a high self-esteem and an enhanced racial pride.
Peace, what's going on? This is Yane. I am back with a part 2 from my last video, social comparison orientation, and how it's a silent killer of black men. But in this video, I'm providing a strategy that we need to take individually and collectively to redefine the narrative of the high value man. So this clip from Wise Intelligent really explains in the most simplest way how the effort to ensure black men don't see their true value has been going on for years. And the modern definition of the term high value man is a contributor to the effort put in place years ago. So we are going to unpack this clip and really give you context to support what I'm saying in regards to the effort that's been put out there to lower the value that black men see in themselves. But keep in mind, this does not remove the responsibility and power we have as black men to transform and renew our minds individually and be the victors of our conditions rather than the victims. Improving your mental health is the most revolutionary act you can do right now. If you haven't already, please subscribe, like, comment, and share, and let's get into this. Let me give you the bullet list of the strategies, and we'll break each one down and show how it relates to black people as a collective in society and individually. The ICY strategy is designed to combat social comparison orientation. First one is identify the story. Identify the limiting beliefs of the story. Create a new story. Empowering beliefs, evidence. So for identify the story, we have to be honest about the narrative being presented to us in social media. And this is for any situation. What is the narrative or the story that is being presented? In this case, in this context, the narrative or story that's being presented claims that high value is determined by income. Keep in mind that for this story or narrative to actually be true, it is essentially saying that the majority of black men are of low value. And this is because, according to the narrative, the majority of black men make less than $100,000 a year. As a black man and as a transformational coach, I am certain that such a narrative is 1000% categorically untrue. Every human being is of high value. And if we do not see ourselves as high value, we will suffer and fall short of becoming our fullest potential. Black men should strive to be wealthy and break generational wealth curses, but in order to begin that path most powerfully, you have to do it with a growth mindset and not from a deficit mindset or from a story that says you are of low value. Black men need to see themselves as more than the victims of oppression, stereotypes, systemic racism. Now let's take a look at this clip of Wise Intelligence speaking, and I'll come back with my commentary about how this step, identify the story, is so important for us to use as a collective and for our individual evolution.
There are people in this particular society who wants to see us exactly where we are. And we cannot let that point elude us. These are the facts. How do we know? 1967, Kerner Commission report on urban disorder. when black people said, yo, we're tired of this system. You know what I mean? This system is oppressing us. So we rebelled against the system. We burned things. We said, yo, we had enough. He did his little report on what caused these riots. He said, what caused these riots? He said it was young children who started these riots, and what was motivating them was a high self-esteem and an enhanced racial pride.
Now, if you look right there in this section that he's talking about, under causes of the riots, and at this part, it says mood. Mood is a temporary state of mind, of feeling. So one of the causes of the riots were young black people with a high self-esteem and an enhanced racial pride. The thing is, we don't know what the answers were for them. We don't know after these discoveries what were their next steps, or what did they already have in place, knowing that there might come a time where black people are disruptive. What is in place for that, or what was their response after these discoveries? And if you look a little deeper into the intention that was put to lower the self-esteem and the enhanced racial pride, you'll find COINTELPRO.
COINTELPRO was an FBI operation established in the 50s by J. Edgar Hoover.
FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover was spying on citizens and actively suppressing dissent.
To target African Americans who were fighting for justice and equality. He targeted Dr. King, he targeted Malcolm X, and over 80% of the targets of COINTELPRO were members of the Black Panther Party.
Secret counterintelligence program, a global, clandestine, unconstitutional practice of surveillance, infiltration, and disruption of groups engaged in protest, dissent, and social change. Targets included the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, the Black Panthers, the American Indian Movement, the Young Lords, anti-war groups, black booksellers, and other groups.
Why is this so important? Why is it so important to track every move of black people, to discredit any black activists? And what does it mean to say that it's dangerous to be a black identity extremist? What mindset or mood do you not want black people to have? And how dangerous was it for black men to be inspired by a Malcolm X or a Martin Luther King or a Fred Hampton? The fact is, there's something about black men with a high self-esteem and an enhanced racial pride that is somehow a threat in this country. It has been and still is. So there is an intention behind ensuring that black men don't see themselves of high value. So it's important for us to identify the story that is being told to us about us. The stories that are being projected onto us as black people here in America. These stories show up in all different forms. They show up in our environment. They show up in our media. They show up in our schools. They show up in society. And many times when we face traumas in life, they create beliefs. And the beliefs begin to shape our identity. And that identity becomes then our behavior. So it's important for us to identify this story. Not just the stories projected onto us, but the stories we now tell ourselves. That we may have been telling ourselves for years. Maybe our whole life. Maybe for generations. So identifying the story is important because in this awareness, we find the path to breaking the generational trauma. Now this brings us to our next point, identifying limiting beliefs. Yes, we can identify the story. That's important. We have to know the story that we're telling ourselves. We have to know the story that's being projected onto us to make us tell ourselves certain things. What kind of value do you think we're going to have if we are always seeing ourselves on the news being killed by police and the video is playing over and over? There are so many different stories that we have to identify with that are being projected onto us and not reflecting our true, divine, high value as black men. But even though we identify the stories, we have to identify the limiting beliefs that come from those stories. This is where we get blocked. The story produces limiting beliefs that limit us from having a positive self-image mindset. Here, the limiting belief suggests that if you don't make a certain amount of money, you will not be a man of high value. And so we overlook the innovative skills that we are already possessing within us. So we can't believe that limitation. We can't have those limiting beliefs because they block us from doing what we need to do for our family, to break the generational wealth curse, to break the generational trauma curse. As with anything and any experience in life, we have to identify the story that we are telling ourselves, identify the limiting beliefs, and then we have to transform those limiting beliefs into empowering beliefs. And this you do by creating a new story. Imagine if collectively that enhanced racial pride was never brought down, or the self-esteem was never brought down. But it's time to create a new story. The new story isn't just making something up in order to lie to yourself. The new story must be supported by evidence, and it must be a story that makes sense. So let's renew the term for high value man. A high value man is naturally self-confident because he lives a life that he is proud of. A man with integrity is high value because he is trustworthy. Though not the easiest thing to do, he has values and moral codes that he upholds even when no one is watching. He does the right thing when it's not convenient. Looking at this definition of high value man, we can create a completely different story that is empowering, healthy, and makes sense. Yet it still does not necessarily exclude the importance of creating wealth. It's important to emphasize that I am not suggesting that we should not care about money or not focus on earning adequate wealth. Money is important, and in my personal opinion, if we are to express the fullness of God, then what better way to do it than through wealth? So it is crucial for a man to be focused on how he can create generational wealth for himself and his family. So the new story for black men is, I am a high value man with integrity, principles, morals, discipline, and humility in all that I do. My word is bond, and walking in this righteous path will lead me to abundance in all areas of wellness. Now that we have created a story that makes sense, let's look at the evidence to support why this story is true. The evidence is what supports our story. This is the available body of facts or information indicating whether a belief or proposition is true or valid. So let's look at the facts that support the story of the high value man. Integrity. When considering individuals for employment, multi-billionaire Warren Buffett says, we look for intelligence, we look for initiative or energy, and we look for integrity. And if they don't have the latter, the first two will kill you. Integrity makes you secure and confident in who you are as a person. If you don't have integrity, there's nothing to nourish your self-esteem because you're not honest about your morals and values.